I was struggling with anxiety without any clue as to what was really going on. So that was my primarily, I would say, my first experience with struggling with health. And this was also many years ago. So mental health wasn't something that was as discussed as it is in today's time. So now there's, of course, much greater awareness. There's help available. You have access to good therapists. You have access to really good medical practitioners as well. The only thing that would be sustainable and really help me was yoga. So I got into yoga for the wrong reasons.
Hatha yoga teacher offering wellness and healing retreats. Our guest today on the Settle or Be Better podcast is Nirali. She's going to be talking to us about women's health, yoga, healing, and a lot more. So welcome Nirali, and over to you. Why don't you begin by telling us a little bit about your personal health and well-being story and your current work.
Thank you for the introduction. And for me personally, I think health, when most people think about health, it's always usually physical health that they're thinking about. But for me, health challenges started when I was much younger, and it was mental health challenges. And I remember that I was as young as 12 years old and I was dealing with anxiety. Only at that time, I didn't know it was anxiety. I just didn't have an explanation for it. I would keep falling sick. I would be, a lot of times before exams, I would be throwing up. And I constantly, my family and I, we always thought that, I have a stomach bug. But years later, I was actually 18 or 19 in my second year of engineering when I was diagnosed with anxiety and panic attacks. So for a couple of years, almost, from my pre-teens to my late teens, I was struggling with anxiety without any clue as to what was really going on. I would say my first experience with struggling with health. And this was also many years ago. So mental health wasn't something that was as discussed as it is in today's time. So now there's, of course, much greater awareness. There's help available. You have access to good therapists. You have access to really good medical practitioners as well. But at that time, it was almost unheard of. And it was also considered taboo to, talk about mental health, because if you had something to do with mental health, it meant you were really messed up. So I was really young, and the only thing that would be sustainable and really help me was yoga. So I got into yoga for the wrong reasons. It was as a therapy. I got into it because it would really help me be calm. It would help. Now the words are, regulate your nervous system. But at that time, I was really young. I didn't know any of this. So that's how my journey with yoga started. Of course, in yoga, we say that the physical benefits are just a positive side effect that happens. You shouldn't really get into yoga to lose weight or to, become fit. The intention of yoga is so much deeper. It is essentially bringing balance to your mind, body, spirit, and your energy. So all of that really helped me, and I got into yoga. And that's how I was able to, really bring ease and a lot of stability to my mental health, which is fantastic because dealing with these challenges can be very, very debilitating for people. And I'm so grateful that I had yoga, meditation, and a strong practice to keep me really grounded. It's been ages since I've experienced any panic attack. I would still experience anxiety maybe a little bit occasionally, but I'm able to really, bring a distance between the mental thoughts that are racing or the fear that is rooted within. So it's been fantastic for me. Yoga changed my life.
It's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that with us. And like you rightly said, a lot of people unfortunately get into yoga just with an intention to lose weight, right? Like there's so many yoga classes in your own neighborhood, and most of the people join it because they want to lose weight. And they probably never reach a point where they can cross beyond that goal and actually dive deeper and learn a lot more about yourself along the process if you don't have the right teacher, right?
I agree. Having access to the right resources goes a very long way. So if you are on this journey of yoga, I would say that definitely the physical postures, the additional health benefits, fantastic. Your hormonal imbalances, your PCOD, PCOS, all of that will be helped. But also take some intention to go deeper, because otherwise it's like using an aeroplane to just drive a car. Like you're not actually flying it. This is an example that Sadhguru gives, and I think it's so relevant. So yoga is just so much more.
And for the ones who want to begin with the yoga practice with an intention to probably also help with their anxiety or any other mental health issues that they're facing with current, how do you suggest that how can one make up a routine for themselves with yoga, and what would the elements be like if you want to do it with an intention for our mental?
Let me give you actually 3 pointers that would really really help. I think the first would be to have an intentional practice that is included in your daily life. And it can be as simple as, setting aside 15-20 minutes for just a simple pranayam practice. So your breath and your thought process is very deeply interconnected. And you'll notice this, right? When your mind is racing, your breaths are very short. So if you're able to bring stability to your breath, it's going to reflect in your mental process as well. So a simple pranayam practice, I think everybody would know a Nadi Shuddhi pranayam or an Anulom Vilom as it's called as well. Different variations. See what fits for you and take about at least 10 to 15 minutes in a day to add that practice to your routine. It's super simple. You can do it anytime during the day. Even at work, you can sit at your desk and take 10-15 minutes out to do it. The other thing would be, I say, and this is important, I think align your circadian rhythm. There is, the trend of sleeping really late and waking up late. Whatever your office hours might be, try to have a regulated sleep time. Go to bed early, wake up early. As much as this sounds like some boring advice that an 50-year-old auntie will give you, it's actually very true. My parents have been telling me this all their life, and it took me a while to really experience it and see the benefits of it. So take it from someone who's been on the other spectrum of it. I've been the person who used to sleep at 4 in the morning and wake up at 11. I can vouch that sleeping early and waking up early significantly beneficial for every aspect of your life: physical well-being, emotional well-being, mental well. And the third thing would be food. I think food is a very important factor which a lot of us don't recognize. So if you're just a little more mindful of what you're eating, how you're eating, notice that, if there is a tendency to use food as an escape, if there is a tendency to indulge in foods that are more stimulating for the system, so more tamasic, just see that if you can eat foods which are a little simpler, so as close to the natural state of the food as possible. If you don't want to alter your eating habits, at least add some good eating habits, or add fruits and salads to your diet. So whatever you want to eat, just before that, have a little salad. That helps a lot. It seems unlikely that, your mental health and your food would be so directly linked, but it is deeply linked. So if you can bring a little more conscious intention to what you're eating and how you're eating, it'll make a huge difference as well. And one more thing I'd say is physical activity. I know I said 3 points, but physical activity, get moving. I cannot stress on this enough. Even if you're having a really bad day, and you would know this as well, Sakshi, like physical movement really makes a difference. Your body, your energy, mental health, all of that benefits deeply from physically moving your body. Whether it's cycling, running, just a walk for 20 minutes, whatever it is, try to get that in.
Absolutely. I mean, I can relate time with this because just last week, because of some other reason, work, I could not really go and work out, for 2 to 3 days. And I just felt like mentally I was in this rut, and, I felt like nothing is working out for these 2 to 3 days. I didn't have the energy to do my work also, right? Like mentally exhausted with that. But yesterday,
Absolutely.
starting out with one workout that day, and today I feel so much better. It's as powerful as that, and also you'll sleep a lot better, right, when you get moving and when you allow your body to express to movement and everything, right? So that makes so much sense. Since you take a lot of retreats, you conduct a lot of retreats with women specifically, from what I've seen with your work, and plan these health and wellness retreats for women, right? So not just from a yoga perspective, but from a health coach, or from someone who arranges these kind of health retreats with an intention for a lot more wholesome well-being. The next question is like, women have to deal a lot with mood regulation, and it's a woman is not every week in the month is very different for each woman, right? Like every week you feel a different feeling, not just physically but mentally, emotionally, right? And we go through this cycle, and it's unfortunate that we are not taught about this in school, right? I mean, recently I read a book by Dr. Mindy, which said fast like a goal. And apart from the fasting aspect of it, the way she explains menstrual cycles and how your energy level and how your emotions are affected in a month, in 4 different weeks, it's crazy that we aren't taught about this in school, right? Because there's so many things that we can arrange around our emotional health and mental health than it going the other way, that we doing everything else but not taking care of this and how our cycle is through that month, right? So every week is different, like I said, for every woman. We might feel the energy difference, and emotionally as well. How we show up for a work, probably we show up on a mat as well on that particular day, right? How do you do something that sort of helps you or the women in your retreats also to ease into their practice or the way that they show up in their personal life, in their work life? And is there something that you help around, since we're talking about women and yoga and women's health, right? So how do you sort
Yeah.
of manage your energy levels throughout the month, and how does your yoga practice probably change throughout the month, and what do you do differently in
Yeah,
these different?
lovely. Thank you for asking this question. First of all, because I think so many women, at least I was one of those women who were completely insensitive to, how my body and how my emotions would feel depending on the state of my cycle. And this is something which isn't taught to us, like you said. And we grew up comparing ourselves to everyone else around us. And the women in our family are expected to show up to work irrespective of what, their situation might be. You see the men in your family for whom their life is completely like a straight line because they don't have the emotional wavering that a woman goes through. So I would expect the same from myself. So the first thing I would say is that as women, we need to first recognize that you are not straight line. Your emotions will not be a straight line. Your physical body will not be a consistent straight line. There is an ebb and flow, and that needs to be honored and respected. You need to become very sensitive to it, and you need to become considerate to it as well. So don't be harsh with yourself. Don't expect yourself to show up at 100% every single day of the week, irrespective of the state you're in. If you are going through something, like say for example, before your menstrual cycle, you will feel sluggish, you will feel emotionally overwhelmed, you will feel sensitive, you might feel snappy as well. Just allow that and just be kind to yourself, because that's the first thing. That bring kindness to your own self. Depending on different phases of your cycle, your body will also respond differently. So if your body demands rest, and that is important as well, right? As much as I say getting active is important, it is also important to recognize that rest is the basis of all activity. Unless you're getting good rest, showing up with activity is unimportant, because the quality of your activity depends on the quality of your rest. So please get enough rest. Understand that, today is a day where I do not need to do a 30-minute workout. I probably need to just do a 15-minute meditation practice. Or I need to do something which is very gentle, like yin yoga or something like that. Or today is a day where I will just go for a walk. So just be sensitive to that. And that takes some amount of practice, and it takes some amount of paying attention to your body and really connecting with your body as well. And this is something that, as women in this world where we're constantly having to do things, we're constantly having to meet deadlines, show up at work, show up at home in 100% capacity. First of all, what we lose is our connection with our own selves. We're present to everyone's needs except our own. So the most important thing I would say is just take a moment to connect within and really pay attention to how it is that you're feeling emotionally, mentally, psychologically, spiritually, physically. Just take a check-in, be considerate to that. So show up with what you can depending on how you're feeling. I think that's important. It comes with time, but we need to make deliberate effort to do that.
True. I mean, and with the hustle culture today that we've glamorized so much, I see so many women around have my period, but it's okay. I can still give my 100% in the workout today. And there's this question that should I or should I not work out during my periods, right? I mean, I feel like it's so individualistic and it's so personal to you that you should just sit with yourself and see if, what do you feel like today? What does your body feel like today? Does it feel like moving? And what kind of movement, right? And this is why I feel we see so many young women have so many hormonal issues, because we have a masculine energy and a feminine energy. And today, with probably the choice of work that we have, if you're in a corporate world where we are expected to show up as a boss or have the authority within us, and we are more masculine energy is much more dominant, and we have that thing that we have to lead, we have to do these things, I have to ace in both my personal life and my professional life, and we forget to balance our energies. We tend to go all in with everything we want to do, and really ends up with so much mental and emotional exhaustion at some point that we don't even have time to process, right? So I feel like balancing these energies is also so important, because I remember last year I started a kickboxing workout training, right? And I'm in my 20s and I should be able to do it with the intensity that is there in the regular class. And I started doing it, and literally that month, I just got my period within 10 days because I was probably overworking myself, right? So I feel like this understanding that we are biologically different and we need to sort of, manage our own physical activity and movement accordingly and according to our cycles. It's so important to understand that. So because a lot of women also tend to overwork themselves and push way too hard, even at times when their body's telling them otherwise, right? So that is something that I've been observing as well. And sleep is another aspect. You see so many studies also, and so many health coaches talk about how women need a little bit more sleep than men usually, and we are the ones who are undersleeping the most because there's so many things going on in our mind, and this, we probably are exhausted and we're not able to sleep as well at night because there's just so much happening in our life and so much happening mentally and emotionally, right? So how does yoga help us regulate our sleep that way? And in general, with all the women you coach or you meet up with, how do you think have they been able to invite more sleep in their life and good quality sleep? What sort of changes?
Very good question again, Sakshi. Yes, the quality of sleep makes a huge difference, right? What is happening is, even if we are getting, say, 8 hours of sleep, which a lot of people aim for, if you're not waking up feeling rested, if you're not waking up feeling refreshed, it doesn't matter whether it was 8 hours or 10 hours. What matters is that even if you're sleeping for, say, 6 hours, but you're getting good quality of sleep, that's when your actual realignment is happening. That's where your healing is happening. That's where your rebuilding is happening. So I think quality of sleep is very important. One part which plays a very major role is that in yoga, like I said, there's a huge focus on your breath. And when your breath becomes balanced and stable, it'll reflect in every aspect of your life. So it'll reflect in your energy, how you're feeling. It'll reflect in how you're tuned to the day as well. So a lot of people, what they notice initially when they start practicing a good traditional Hatha Yoga practices, that they'll notice that they automatically start waking up early. They probably are used to waking up at, say, 7:30 in the morning. But when they start practicing yoga, automatically maybe at 5:30 or even at 6, they'll just automatically wake up. That's because as you're doing a yoga practice, your system is aligned with nature as well. Because that's how human beings or all animals are designed, right? We're created to be in alignment with nature. And every time we're out of alignment with our own selves, we're also out of alignment with nature. So what happens is with yoga that automatically your circadian rhythm will come into balance. You will become more sensitive to light as well. So you will notice that, when the sun is up, you will want to be up. You will not want to sleep beyond that time. So that is one of the first things that happens with yoga practice. The second thing is the quality of your sleep also changes because you're able to go into deeper, restful sleep more quickly. So if you're going to bed at, say, 9:30 or 10, you're able to get into deeper states of sleep much more easily. And having some kind of discipline around your meals as well. So, we say that before you go to bed, at least 3 hours before you go to bed, your meal should be done. So if you're planning to sleep at 10, by 7 is when you should have your dinner. A lot of times yogis, what they practice is that they will not eat after sundown. So if the sun has gone down, it means your digestive fire is aligned to the sun, right? So if the sun has gone down, it means your digestive fire is also going down. So now you will not burden it by eating. So that's some kind of element of discipline that if you bring in, you will notice it will have a huge impact on your sleep. So those are some of the things that are really important in yoga. And other than that, to help your sleep, you can just set some simple nighttime rituals as well. If you find that your mental activity is too much, for a lot of people, what happens is when they lay down in bed, there's a lot of mental activities going on. So thoughts are racing. So before that, just have a simple journaling practice. Obviously, keep your screens away for at least an hour and a half before you go to bed. Everybody advises us of this. So don't scroll in bed. Try to keep your devices away. Yeah, and just have either a journaling practice that you could, sort of just empty out before you go to bed, so that when you go to bed, all those thoughts are not taking up headspace.
Of course, that makes so much sense, especially the last thing that you talked about. I mean, a lot of us have conditioned ourselves that we've anchored bed to screen time. The moment we come from work and we go into bed, our laptop is on, we're Netflixing, or we are just, scrolling through Instagram. And that has been conditioned over the years, right? So we need to break that. We need to associate our bedroom with rest and sleep, and probably not like when you hit the bed, your brain should get the signal it's time to sleep and not to watch another series at
Absolutely.
So these
Ideally,
type of
don't have a television in the bedroom. Don't
right.
have your laptop in the bedroom. Even if, like, a lot of times, what we recommend is like keep your phone outside, put it on
Mhm.
airplane mode if you can. If possible, also turn off your Wi Fi at night so that your sleep quality is unaffected by all these additional factors.
Right. And also the way we set our alarms, or even if our phone is on loud at night, we don't understand but how our phone rings and it gets us into this alert mode, in this fight or flight state.
Yeah.
Certainly throughout the day, then we are in this fight or flight mode for no reason at all. We don't even recognize it, but then it has such a major impact on us calming down just before bed, right?
Absolutely, your heart is racing. Like if your phone just rings, your heart races. Just pay attention to that. Your normal balanced state will suddenly spike into a state of panic.
Right. Exactly. That makes so much sense. And lastly, something you spoke about earlier is how a lot of us need to understand yoga beyond its physical benefits and beyond probably losing weight on those goals, right? In terms of healing, how have you seen in your experience healing happening on the mat for people you've met or people you've talked to?
What a beautiful question. I'm really enjoying this chat actually. So healing, I feel it is so deep, as an experience, and yoga and a traditional Hatha yoga practice, I feel it really, one, it gives you a very strong foundation, a foundation where your body and your emotions and your thoughts are balanced. So then whatever it is, that safety of emotions to come up, it has room for that. So I think that is one of the predominant things, because as long as you're grounded and you're stable, even if there are memories coming up, even if there are emotions coming up, you're able to look at it without flowing with it. You're able to really look at it, objectively, and also with compassion, and release it. And which is essentially what healing is, right? It is allowing trapped emotions, it is allowing trapped pain, trauma to come up and for it to be released, because the desire for that to come up is so that it can be released, so that it's no longer a blockage in your system. So that is essentially providing the safety of that strong foundation for healing. Another thing is that the yoga asanas that you do, a lot of the postures, they work on different aspects of your physical well-being, but they also help on releasing emotional blockages, right? So our hips store a lot of trauma, and as you're doing these practices, you might notice that and it is very normal and completely natural if that is to happen for someone, that emotions might come up, emotions might surface, and a lot of people get scared and they think that yoga is making them sad, but it's actually making you lighter, because it allows that to come up so that it can be released. So there are a lot of somatic movements, and they have been taken from yoga practices, right? Because they're consciously working towards releasing those trapped emotions. So that, of course, is how the yoga practice can really help you on your healing journey. Another thing I would say is there's a greater degree of self-awareness that comes in, because you're consciously turning inwards, right? It's one practice which is not an exercise practice where you're engaged with the world. You're not looking at the mirror and taking gym selfies. Ideally, yoga practices and traditional Hatha yoga practices are done with your eyes closed. It's a completely internal practice. Even though you might be in a room with 10 other people, you're not looking at uska asan mere se zyada acha hai ki nahi. You're simply going inwards, and we don't even stress on the physical visual of it. It doesn't
Right.
matter if your posture is not perfect. Whatever your body currently allows, you do the best you can. But the actual effect of the posture is so much deeper than the physical posture. It's going into your system in a much deeper way. So when you start to turn inwards, it is very natural that you become sensitive to your own self. So if we've consciously indulged in dissociation from our emotions with distractions like shopping or alcohol or drugs or sex, whatever it is, yoga is a practice that is going to force you to look within. And that looking within might be scary for people, but is actually the most beautiful process, because unless you connect with your own self, how can you connect with anyone else in the world? How can you connect with your work? How can you connect with your family, your loved ones, till you have connected within? And that connection within, just it goes beyond any form of external escapism that you might choose to indulge in. So I would say that these are some of the things that really transform your healing journey through yoga.
Absolutely. And something you said about our body storing so much trauma, and some practices with yoga helping us release them. There's no comparing different kind of movements. Different exercises have different purpose, and of course everybody has a different choice and a pace of movement they want to go at, right? But a lot of sports or a lot of like say gym workouts are very powerful or very high impact activities, and it's great when you want to feel that power on some days, and you want to really go and have a hardcore workout out there with your music on and everything, right? But when we see yoga, or if anybody who's taken a class, it's more of a release, right? I mean, you're strengthening and becoming stronger also, but along the way it's such a release, like you said, that if you want to do it with an intention of releasing trauma or releasing stored emotions in your body, because it does manifest as discomfort or disease in the long run if you don't deal with it right now, right?
Yeah.
So it's a great form of release, like you said, because we do store so much trauma in our hips, in our shoulders, and with our lifestyles also currently, right? So that makes so much sense. And for someone who is looking to have that release and find strength along the way in their life, this is a great practice, right? And also, one last question is, there's just so many forms of yoga today, right? Like say Hatha Yoga, there's Iyengar Yoga, there's so many different forms. How do you choose one which is the best for you? And also, again, coming back to the emotional health and well-being aspect of it, if this is someone's intention, what yoga practice would fit them the best?
Wow, that's a difficult question. On my own yoga journey, I've explored many different variants of yoga, and I finally arrived and settled with traditional Hatha Yoga. But over the course of my life, I will in fact not, say that one is better than the other. I will say depending on what it is that you're seeking, I feel a yoga practice might call out to you. So for example, when there was a time when I was also doing, physically intensive power yoga, which is essentially, rapid Surya Namaskars which are happening, and that was also helping me, but it was primarily geared towards your physical fitness. So if that's something that, if you find that you're not in a state where you would want a calming or a gentle practice, then you can explore a more physically rigorous practice. And in classical traditional Hatha Yoga also we have practices that are designed around this. So, for example, the classical Hatha Yoga that we offer, one of the practices, Angamardana, is almost like a workout. It's an intense HIIT workout almost, but it is a yogic practice. And that a lot of people really connect with that practice because they are focused on their physical fitness more than, deeper spiritual aspect. Another practice, Surya Shakti, again can be done really fast. It's like doing multiple sun salutations in continuation at a really fast speed as well, once you've got the postures right. So that could be something that really attracts people who want that physical intensity to their practice. If there is specific alignment issues or if there is specific musculoskeletal issues, then Iyengar Yoga works fantastically for that. I have personally explored that as well way before I got into traditional Hatha Yoga. And Iyengar Yoga can be very targeted. They use props, they use the support of ropes, etc., to get very specific alignments in place, which really help people as well. I've heard many miraculous stories of, people coming in wheelchairs and then leaving, with at the peak of physical fitness. So that's an element as well. I've also explored a more traditional Hatha Yoga practice, which has a sequence which is designed by a guru, which you can follow if you align with that. For me personally, a Hatha Yoga practice, it has been very grounding, and the deep connection and the stress on your breath and your posture, I find that I really connect with that. So when it's deliberate, conscious movement, I really connect with that practice. So that's why a traditional Hatha Yoga practice has been very powerful for me. So if you're looking for, say, something, which is a combination of a meditative practice as well as a physical practice, then a classical traditional Hatha Yoga practice like a Surya Kriya or Yogasanas will be fantastic for you, because it is that perfect merger of, a deep conscious inner process combined with the physical asanas. So that's a beautiful journey as well. Yeah, so these are the different forms of yoga I've explored, and over the years I would say each one has had their benefit, and just that the stage I am at in life right now, I feel really connected to the traditional classical Hatha Yoga practice.
Of course, and I mean, people should definitely go out there, do a few classes of different styles of yoga, see what fits best for you. I mean, in the end, it's just going to be beneficial for you,
Yeah.
no matter what
Yeah,
class you
try
go
it
to.
out.
And like you said,
I would
what
say,
phase
have a
of your life.
conversation with the different teachers you're exploring. Just have a conversation. Tell them that, this is my intention with my yoga practice, that I would like to, whether it is bring more balance to my mental state, or whether it is I would like to, become physically stronger and more robust, whatever it is, or I would like to work on hormonal imbalances. Your teacher would be really able to guide you ideally. And I would also say that, go with an open mind and an open heart. If you're someone who's used to, say, a gym workout, bring a different energy to your yoga practice. Understand that this is not just a practice that you're doing for your physical health. It is actually a very sacred tradition over thousands and thousands of years. And I cannot stress enough on the potency and the purity of this practice. It is such a deep process. It is a path in itself. So if you truly open your heart to it and your mind to it, it can just take you to a different place altogether.
Absolutely, and that's true. A lot of gym goers have this perspective. A lot of my friends also, when they talk about yoga, it's like, is it even a workout? Like, will I even feel like I've worked out? Is it just stretching? What is it? I mean, that's true. We need to walk into a yoga class with an open mind and open heart, like you said. And definitely towards the end of it, whatever you came in with would change, right? Like in just one class, you might also feel that difference if you find the right teacher and the right practice for yourself. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. And this brings us to the end of the episode today. As we conclude, do you have any last messages or thoughts to leave us?
Thanks, Sakshi. This was absolutely wonderful. I really enjoyed our chat. And thank you for coming up with such consciously curated list of questions. I felt that it was really connected to the conversation and the relevance of this conversation in today's time. Just a passing closing message, I think I would just, especially women, I would say, please be kinder to yourselves. We've spent an eternity being really harsh to our own selves and trying to be like men. We don't have to be like men. Who you are, and that is what makes you special and beautiful. And you can be in your full power while retaining your feminine. So more power to all the women out there. And to the men, I would say, please don't be afraid of your feminine as well. I know the world forces us to show up in our masculine all the time, but please know that there is a feminine part to you as well that requests kindness and attention from you. In yoga, the ideal person is not man or woman, it's Ardhanarishwar, and Shiva is depicted as Ardhanarishwar, which is half man and woman, which is essentially that your masculine and your feminine are balanced. So I would say this to both men and women, that please recognize that your masculine and your feminine both need to be nurtured and nourished, and let's not suppress one in favor of the other.
Absolutely, that's a beautiful message, Nirali. Thank you so much for being here today and spending this half an hour with us and giving us so many insights. I hope that our audience is inspired and they go out there, they try to see which practice fits them the best, and at least just go and take a class if they haven't yet, right? And for the ones who don't follow you already, there'll be a link in the description below. They can reach out to you, learn a lot more from you, and probably women can join any of your upcoming retreats and have the experience for themselves. Absolutely. Beautifully curated, and I hope that even I can be a part of it sometime soon this year.
I would love to have you, Sakshi. In fact, I'm doing one in Himachal in June, which is for both men and women. So I invite you to that. I would love to have you. And to anyone listening as well, the details will be on my account. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.